Your name is John Kafi.
Yo, this Vic Spencer, and you're now listening to Coffee Talk hosted by John Kafi. Ha.
Greetings, you are now listening to Coffee Talk, and this is John Kafi. Here at Coffee Talk, we do this for the culture with new episodes every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can check us out online at www.coffee-talk.com. That is KAFI-TALK.com. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at John_Coffee_. Follow me on Twitter at John_Coffee. Be sure to like that Facebook page at facebook.com/CoffeeTalkPod. You can subscribe to us on YouTube at Coffee Talk hosted by John Kafi, and we're also available on Spotify. Once again, that is KAFI. Okay, first order of business. The BET Hip Hop Awards this year had a showcase for Loud Records, famous record label of the 90s, from Vibe.com. Loud Records takes over 2022 BET Hip Hop Awards with tribute performance. In celebration of the label's 30th anniversary, Loud Records put together a special tribute performance featuring a mix of its most legendary acts at the 2022 BET Hip Hop Awards. Preceded by an introductory speech by the label's founder, Steve Rifkin, the set proved to be one of the undoubted highlights of that night, and it prompted all in the building to rise from their seats. Loud Records was a dream, a passion that became reality, Rifkin told the crowd before Dead Prez took the stage to perform their anthemic single, Hip Hop. Other performers include, Dead Prez, the aforementioned Dead Prez, 3 6 Mafia and Project Pat, Wu-Tang Clan, Mobb Deep, Big Pun, MOP, and Lil Flip, with David Banner. Now, Dead Prez was probably the least known out of all those people I just named. Mobb Deep was maybe a close second, and MOP, out of all those people, I'd say Lil Flip, 3 6 Mafia, Wu-Tang, Big Pun were kind of the big dogs. And then you had the tier under them was like Mobb Deep, Dead Prez, and then there's some people that were missing. I just want to mention Dead Prez was discovered by Lord Jamar of Brand Nubian. I like to do the little hip-hop family tree thing. But some of the acts that were missing include, I can name 3. Well, 4 actually. One of them is affiliated with one of them. The Beatnuts, Cellar Dwellers, and Alcoholics, and Exhibit. Now, the Beatnuts were Native Tongue affiliates, Juju and Psycho Les. They used to be a trio, then they turned into a duo. They had another member named Fashion. He left the group and started calling himself Al Tariq. He started his own movement. They were producers and MCs, the Beatnuts, separately and together. They produced for Common, Ghostface Killah, Chi Ali, a legendary group that I would like to see on that stage for the BET Hip Hop Awards. Cellar Dwellers, Ugg and Phantasm. There's some underground cats, released a couple albums on Loud Records. I would like to see them up there. The Alcoholics, also known as the Licks, recently appeared on Drink Champs, the podcast with Nori. They were discovered by West Coast legend King T, and they formed a crew called the Liquid Crew with King T, Exhibit, and various other MCs like Defari, etc., etc. Exhibit's known for Pimp My Ride. He was also signed to Loud Records. He dropped an album called At the Speed of Life, which was a pretty dope album. So those are some artists I would like to see on that stage for those awards. Also, the thing about Loud Records was a lot of these better known or more well-known artists would collab often with the lesser known artists on the label, such as Dead Prez appeared on Big Pun's first album, as well as Mobb Deep. The Alcoholics did a song with ODB of Wu-Tang Clan called Hip Hop Drunkies, etc., etc. So there was a lot of camaraderie going on at that label, and it was a legendary label founded in 1992. That's it for Here's My Take on It, and we'll be up next with some selections for Coffee's Crates. Okay, for this edition of Coffee's Crates, we have a few projects for you to look into and enjoy. The first one is Versatilla, A New Leaf, an album produced entirely by our special featured guest, White Lotus. We're going to talk to him in a minute. It features Juleunique, who is closely connected to Holocaust of the Black Knights. It's a Wu-Tang affiliate. Bronze Nazareth from Detroit, underground hip-hop artist, Wu-Tang affiliate. And White Lotus himself also features as a guest, as well as the production of the whole album. You can find that at versatilla.bandcamp.com, versatilla.bandcamp.com. Next up, we got Rome Streets, Kiss the Ring, his Griselda Records debut, featuring production by Camouflage Monk, Conductor Williams, Denny LaFleur, DJ Green Lantern, Griselda in-house producer Derringer, and the one and only Alchemist. And it features the usual suspects of Griselda, the team, Westside Gun, Benny the Butcher, Conway the Machine, Boldy James, Armani Caesar, Stove God Cooks. And, next up we got Chuck Strangers, Too Afraid to Dance. Chuck Strangers is a member of the Pro Era crew, Joey Badass's crew. The producers on this project are Chuck Strangers himself, Gray Matter, Shepherd Sounds, and Envision Sound. And it features the one and only Brownsville's only Ka and Caleb Giles. Be sure to check that out. And last but not least, Coffee's Crates has a new Legendary Collabs free download stream for you to check out. It's a playlist. Coffee's Crates playlist volume 1, Legendary Collabs. You can download it at darkagesmusic.bandcamp.com, and you can also stream it there. And it features collab tracks between artists such as Mobb Deep, Gangstar, Cypress Hill, Nas, Wu-Tang Clan, Kool G Rap, M.O.P., Snoop Dogg, AZ, Styles P, J Really Damager, MF Doom, The Beatnuts, Big Daddy Kane, Common, Scarface, and Cannabis. Check that out. Once again, it is darkagesmusic.bandcamp.com. Coffee's Crates playlist volume 1, Legendary Collabs. That's all we have for you on this episode in this edition of Coffee's Crates. Check us out next episode for some more ill hip hop.
Very cool and domineering as a leader, merciless if caught by defiance in their demeanor. Despite the cheater, Beatrix, he tried to teach her. Piss, she didn't use chopsticks, a rice eater. What he thought was acting like an animal, practicing in battle too. No match for him, and that is how she lose. Tiger Crane style is what she used. Got defeated over and over, but she won't refuse.
That track you were just listening to is Pi May Strikes by Versatilla, and it is produced by none other than our special featured guest. He is the chief of the Lotus clan, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Give it up for White Lotus.
What's good? What's good?
What's happening? What's happening? Hey, man, so that album by Versatilla, how did that come about? Let's kick it off with that question.
Tilla reached out to me on Facebook, like probably about 2016 for beats and production and stuff like that, and we recorded one of the tracks off the album. It's called Razor in the Wind, and we sat on it for a long time, you know, and
right.
I guess just kind of kept building with him after a while, and we got him to feature on the custom jewelry project, and that stuff turned out really dope. And we had a lot of leftover tracks and stuff that we were working on. And it just sort of organically kind of came out of custom jewelry, if that makes sense, which is a project that I did with Juleunique. And that was kind of like almost like a sequel to it, if that makes sense.
I see. So with Juleunique, he has some connections to the Wu-Tang family. He's close to Holocaust.
Yeah, he featured on Smuggling Booze in the Graveyard. It was a
War Cloud.
Yeah, War Cloud.
Yeah.
Back in I don't even know what year that was, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, definitely.
From now, but Juleunique is a multifaceted MC. You know, like he rhymes with all kinds of different, what I would say, almost like genres in hip hop. He's like one of the most diverse people on the mic that I've heard to date.
That's dope. And he released that album Custom Jewelry. When was that? A couple years ago?
Yeah, Custom Jewelry was probably like 2019. Like, I think was when we wrapped it up. But you know, some of the songs that were on that were stuff that we started working on or didn't finish, or were like snippets and bits and pieces of stuff that we had kind of as like featured tracks or stuff that, like, you know, we never ended up using. Like,
right.
One of the songs that was on there was a Holocaust track that it sat in the vault for a really long time.
Right.
We actually had somebody that paid for the song but never released it, really. So
yeah,
it was just going to go unnoticed. So we wanted to do something with it. And to me, it felt like nobody else could fit on that song properly except for Juleunique, because of just the whole way that it sounded. Like, I would say not a lot of people sound really cohesive with Warcloud as an artist.
Yeah.
He's a very complicated lyricist who doesn't really bend his style for anybody else. You know, you got to kind of match him.
No doubt.
That's the way it is. And Juleunique is a really dope, you know, catalyst for someone like Holocaust. They sound really dope together.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, be sure to check out Warcloud, also known as Holocaust. We'll put a link down in the description for that Custom Jewelry album of the YouTube video, so you guys will be able to check that out. Now, I want to rewind a little bit back past all this stuff you were just talking about and get to the root of the matter, which is, how did you discover hip-hop?
I guess, like, my very first encounters of it would be just, like, watching my older brother and his friends, like, pop locking and breakdancing on our front lawn. Like, back in the early 80s, you know, we didn't really have a lot of hip-hop out in Canada. Like, it was, as far as, like, people doing it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, rapping and stuff like that, you know. There was more, like, breakdancing and, you know, stuff like that was more apparent, DJing, you know, but you didn't really see a lot of MCs, you know, in the local scene when I was growing up, you know. But most of what I gravitated towards would have been, like, early Slick Rick. They used to have these mixtapes that came out that were called rap tracks. I don't know if you remember those from, like, the early 80s, but
rap tracks.
I remember playing those tapes a lot.
I had a record called Electric Breakdance. That was actually the first. It was in 1984. It's actually the first piece of hip hop I got my hands on, and yeah, it was pretty much like a compilation. It had Run DMC on there and Grandmaster Flash and a few other people. So yeah, that's when I heard Jam on It by Nucleus. So I mean, that was my introduction pretty much to hip hop right there. But you mentioned the Canadian hip hop scene. Now, at some point, it did actually become, you know, more evolved from those early days. And around the time when you first started, like, making music and wanting to become an artist, a creator, a creative, how was the scene then? You told me before the interview that you were working with some artists from Vancouver.
Yeah, so like, that's what I was just gonna say. Like, where I'm from, you know, it's a very, like, our most popular event in my city is a rodeo. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not exactly the most hip hop friendly city, you know. So most of the stuff that was coming out from Canada would have been from, like, Toronto, where Drake is from, or, you know, Vancouver, where most of the guys that I ended up working with are from as well. You know, and there was a group out of there in the early 90s called the Rascalz, like, spelled like Rascalz.
I know them. I used to watch the video. I saw their video on BET, actually.
Yeah, they had this album that was called Cash Crop, and that was what really stuck out to me, and like, to say like we're proud of anything that came out of Canada.
Right.
The Rascalz were one of the things, for me personally, that I really resonated with.
Right.
I love those albums. I played that nonstop, man.
I wanted to ask you about 3 artists in particular and see if you had any early connection to them as far as a listener. Cardinal Official, Frankenstein, and Socrates.
No, so the Cardinal Official and Socrates, I believe they featured on the Rascalz album at one point on a song that was called Northern Touch. It was kind of like like those posse cuts that they do.
Yeah.
And it had like pretty much all the heavy hitting Canadian artists on it.
Right.
And Cardinal Official was coming out of like Toronto and that area, and there's another rapper from out that way called Chaos. He did that Crabs in the Bucket song. Like, I don't know if y'all know that, but it was a kind of a famous track a little while back. And another joint that was called Heaven Only Knows or something like that. Had like this Gilligan's Island video for it. That was kind of dope. But that was probably more like in like 2001 era. I think that stuff was kind of coming out. But yeah, I wasn't really much of a fan of Cardinal Official's music, but I did know him. He was one of the most apparent people on Much Music, which was like our version of MTV in Canada. Like they were pretty much, they like filled out the hip hop hour of Rap City. It was usually like some Cardinal Official songs. Like, I can't remember what the girl's name was that he used to produce, but she was like a singer or something like that.
He had more of a reggae vibe to his stuff,
like that's what I mean. They had more of a reggae vibe, like in Sean Paul, like that kind of stuff. Was real popular out in Canada.
And Socrates went on to work with closely with Redman there for a little while. I remember that.
I remember him having like the most like authentic hip hop sound to me. Like Socrates and the Rascalz were sort of like the standout artists in Canada at that time. Yeah.
Now, as far as some of the other artists there in Canada, you worked with, or you have some connections to Crucial, The Guillotine, and Poor Man Militia?
That was more from working with Purpose from Tragic Allies. I used to kind of build with Purpose quite a lot on, I think it was, not sure if it was Facebook back then. I think it was like more like MSN Messenger or something like that. It was way back then, but like somebody said to me that they thought I sounded like I would sound good with these dudes, so I kind of seeked out Purpose from Tragic Allies, and he was doing work with Crucial, The Guillotine, and that was how I ended up kind of building with him. Shout
out Tragic Allies and Purpose. ST Knack has kind of reinvented himself from Tragic Allies and went on to do a lot of great things with a new angle. So
yeah, I think that him and Al Divino have a really, really dope sound. Like, well, I was feeling a lot of the beats on their new stuff. It's they're always ahead of the game. I mean, fuck around. I think Tragic Allies is one of the best rap groups out there.
And Al Divino did that joint, I think, with Muggs, if I'm not mistaken, Kilogram. I might be mistaken, but I think he did a whole album with Muggs called Kilogram.
I don't know. I'm super out of touch as of recently, like with hip hop, because I don't know. I don't have like a Spotify account or anything like that, and it's hard to know what to purchase.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff coming out. I could.
I'm not saying, yeah, exactly, but I don't even know where to begin. Go about getting it sometimes or whatever nowadays.
Bandcamp or just streaming services. Like me,
yeah.
We come from the era of having the actual physical CD or the vinyl. So it's like you want to be able to hold the album and look at it and read the liner notes and stuff like that. But nowadays everybody's trained to just like, you can access it anywhere. It's going to be on like YouTube or Spotify or something like that. So I had to actually kind of not distance, but kind of grow out. I still collect MP3 files when I get albums, but it's just weird to be able to just, it's out there for everybody and you just plug into the matrix and listen to it instead of actually owning it. Like, I have this album, it's like everybody has that album, you know?
Yeah, it's like that's the way that I am with most hip-hop stuff now. Like, my entire music collection is really just stuff I'm gonna sample,
right?
Or stuff I'm digging through and liked. You know, I don't put on hip hop from my own home computer anymore, which is kind of a sad thing to say, but I think that it's because if you're a producer or you make a lot of hip hop and stuff like that, eventually you kind of become a fan of the music that you're using to make what you like. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and you can't help it.
Yeah,
you can't help it. So yeah, I listen to a lot of soul and jazz music and you know, stuff like that, or music that doesn't have lyrics in it these days, because I'm just a little bit less interested.
Right. Yeah. Well, I forgot to mention to the listeners out there that you are actually an MC and a producer. So you do have a huge catalog of production work that you've done with various different artists and a huge catalog of beats that you've accumulated over the years. So I would like you to tell our listeners a little bit about White Lotus Clan Productions and some of the production work you've done for certain artists.
I guess most of the stuff that I've done would be I did stuff for Tragic Allies there in some of their original projects, maybe 1 to 5 tracks, I would say. I did some stuff for Lost Children of Babylon, lots of stuff with their projects. I did stuff with the Dreadnought Ghost Army, which is my group from Vancouver, or we went by lots of different names. Those same guys. It would be like Seraph Guard was one of the main guys in my group, and Morning Star or Cienfuegos was same guy, different name. They were guys that I met out in Vancouver when I was going to school out there for audio engineering, and we just really clicked when we started hanging out, and they had friends that were doing hip hop, and we just really bumped heads, and for me it was the first time I met people that liked the type of music that I liked. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, people listen to like Wu-Tang and stuff like that where I was from, but like really obscure, like weird hip hop and shit, like there's like few and far between like people that were listening to that stuff. People here listen to like Tupac and Snoop Dogg, and you know, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just yeah.
It's more of an acquired taste, and only certain people dig it. It's like an immersive subgenre that that people have to, you have to be a free thinker and have an open mind to absorb a lot of that type of stuff.
For sure, yeah. Like in as far as produced for other people, I did a lot of tracks with Novocaine and the American Poets guys. I did a lot of stuff with them, and they always seem to find a way to include me in a lot of their albums. I think I got at least a beat or a verse on most of the American Poets projects, and I produced the first one of their albums, which was the American Poets 2099 project back in like I think it was like 2006 or 7. Man, I don't even know when that was. 2007 is my guess.
Now I want to rewind a little bit back to the custom, or fast forward rather, to the custom jewelry album. You did get I noticed there were a couple of Ghostface features on that.
The way that came about was through Kinetic. I guess I've been building with Kinetic for a really long time, and
shout out Kinetic, Kill Army.
Yeah, Kinetic from Kill Army, and Jules was the one who did all the planning and features for that project. So my involvement in custom jewelry was mostly the beat making. Like Juleunique did all of the track layout. He commissioned all of the features, you know, that kind of stuff. So I got a chance to step back and kind of, you know, not have to be in the driver's seat as much.
Right.
And he really just sort of did his thing. I sent him a whole bunch of beats through Gmail one time, and I think I sent him like a folder of snippets. It was like, hey, I had like 200 beats in it, you know what I mean? And within like a month and a half, I swear he had like probably 30 songs
Nice.
done over my tracks. And I was like, holy shit, man, like where did this come from? Like he had a whole project done.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't really decide where to go with it. So we ended up just turning it into a double CD in the end, because a lot of the material we thought was good and solid.
No doubt. Was that the first time you had one of the 9 generals on one of your beats?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I would say that we tried to feature the right people on it,
Right.
to do it justice. You know what I mean? Like we tried to get Trife on it because, you know, 718 Theodore unit, like all that shit was,
Oh yeah.
you know, something that I really looked up to at one point, you know.
I think that was one of the first Silver Ring placements he got on a Wu release, wasn't it? On that Theodore unit album.
I'm not sure who did the production on that.
Yeah, there's a song on there that he produced. It was, I forget what the name of the song was, but I'm pretty sure that's one of his first placements, because he was also on that Birth of a Prince.
I thought that Bronze did the production on Birth of a Prince. I don't remember hearing Silver Ring.
Bronze did like, I think
he did Birth of a Prince and
he did like 2
Joy,
tricks.
or on that album.
Maybe
which
I'm
were
just
probably
thinking-
the best tracks on the record.
I think Silver Rings just had that verse then on that one song.
Yeah.
Maybe that was it. But yeah, as far as your releases, Lotus Society #1 and 2 were mixtape releases. Can you tell us a little bit more about those?
Yeah, those were what I would call MySpace projects. You know what I mean? Like back in that time, it was really like the first opportunity that you had to network with artists from other places. So
Right.
for me, that was big, because most of the guys that I was making music with were out in Vancouver, and when I couldn't really afford my apartment and shit at the time, and was paying a lot of money to go to this audio engineering school that I didn't see me getting through. You know, I would say I'm a little bit of an attention deficit person sometimes.
Right.
When it comes to learning that kind of stuff, and I felt I'd learned enough at the school to kind of walk away from it and make my own music.
Yeah.
So when I got back to Calgary, it was really just like doing music over the internet with people, like, and networking with people, and that's how Lotus Society stuff ended up happening. You know, I would network with all these different people from MySpace, and I was making a lot of beats at the time because I wasn't working. I was really just trying to like focus on music. You know what you're like when you're young. You think you're gonna be the next biggest thing since sliced bread.
Right.
You know, so
What year was this? 2007, 2008?
yeah, that would have been I guess those projects sort of started coming into play around 2006.
Oh, okay.
Is my guess. When I did the Lotus Society stuff, I think that was when I first started working with like Spearman, like the producer from the Bedlam Brethren stuff.
Yeah, shout out Spearman.
Shout out Spearman. He was a big help to me back then. You know what I mean? Like I know you did a little spot with him on your last show there.
Yeah.
And he was mentioning his pops, and he had access to a lot of samples and stuff that like I didn't understand how like internet digging worked at the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
When we were just getting into making beats, like where I'm from, there's a few record stores, but you know, we don't have like the type of record stores where you could really, you know, spend a day finding good samples and then go home and make good music. A lot of the stuff that's in the record stores here is like rock and roll music that's like unusable, you know, and or like dance music, disco music, stuff like that. I relied on the internet heavy back in those days, and Spearman and another beat producer named Snake vs. Crane, you know, really sort of put me on to what they were doing and how they were getting stuff and how they were sampling stuff. And Bronze Nazareth was a real big help to me at that time too. Like I'd kind of heard Kevlar did this. I got a CD off the internet, and it had Kevlar at the end of it. I think it was like a Silver Rings mix CD or something. I got it from some kind of I think it was called Direct Connect. It was like a file sharing program that people used back in the 90s. So I ended up finding this Silver Rings album on there, and on the end of it, Kevlar was like, "This is who we are. You know, if you want to contact us, this is the email or whatever, right?" So I was like, "Oh shit." You know, so I was like, I wanted to work with those guys big because I really enjoyed what was the Mitten Behemoths. I don't know if you remember that track, but it was like him and Bronze did an album where they had different names that were like 50-50, the entity or something like that. The entity, I can't remember off the top of my head, but
Half Entity.
Bronze had a song on that called the Blowgun that I just thought was like the jam.
Was that the Michael Jackson sample on that, or? Oh no, that was.
No, I think it was a Syl Johnson sample.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Oh yeah, R.I.P. Kevlar 7 for real.
Yeah, definitely R.I.P. Kevlar 7. But Bronze put me onto that kind of like, if you listen to that track specifically, like that's where I'm not even gonna lie, that's where my sound developed from, was what he was doing there. Like when I was sampling and making tracks, you know, before that, I really only had the mindset to search for like almost like symphonic type stuff or movie samples, you know. I didn't think about sampling like a full break out of a track. Like I'd never seen anybody do that. You know, with the drums in it and everything. Like the beat to that is literally just a loop. It's like a four bar loop that's sped up, but you know, it fits. You know what I mean? And I seen like a power in that. You know, like the way that he was flipping samples. I was like, yo, this is dope. You know, and it's not that I would say that it's kind of an easy way to make beats, but sometimes when it comes to like hip hop beats, sometimes the basic loops and the most simple stuff make the best hip hop tracks. Like
less is more.
Listen to, like Liquid Swords and albums like that, you know, some of the beats like don't even have switch ups in them. You know, it's just kind of basic stuff. But that was what I liked. You know, I like to listen to the lyrics more, and to me the beat sometimes is just like a piece of paper for people to create on. You know?
Yeah. It's just got that energy, huh, that pushes the words forward, huh?
For sure, yeah.
Now, your first actual album release was Formless Kung Fu, is that right?
Yeah, that was the first project that I did in 2008.
And who were some of the features you had on that one?
Well, so the album was presented by Lost Children of Babylon. I've been working with Rascalz a lot at that time, and Cosmic Crusader, and Richard Raw. Richard Raw is a really fantastic artist. I don't know if you heard any of his stuff, but he does a really dope live stage show, and has come a long way since then. But he was one of my favorite people to have featured on that project. He had a bit of a different style back then, but Richard Raw was a standout artist on that, and the Tragic Allies featured on that, as well as Crucial the Guillotine and Dark Him Be Law from AIG.
Oh yeah,
who's one of my all-time favorite MCs. I don't think he gets enough recognition.
Yeah, he's dope.
He is a real real genuine sound. You know, AIG Time to Eat is one of my all-time favorite records.
I really like AIG. He's got the matter-of-fact style.
Yeah, it was just it's like it's no bullshit. You know what I mean? They had a really good way of putting things across, you know, and it's not like they're trying to big themselves up. They had a style that sounded more like they were just trying to survive.
Did you hear that album that Dark M did with Endemic Emerald?
Endemic Emerald, yeah. I've been, I would say for the last maybe 5 to 7 years, that's one of the only albums that I've played more than 20 times.
Oh yeah.
You know, that was a good record.
Yeah, it was. I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I heard a lot of the samples on it before. I think they even used a similar sample that we used on the Dreadnought Ghost Army project. But you know, and Endemic, so untouchable as a producer somewhat. He's got a really dope way of linking stuff together. I like his sound a lot.
He comes from that same school, huh?
Definitely.
Now, you had also the Royal Reserve Project, which myself and Udi featured on a track or two.
Yeah, and that came apart from Kevlar as well. Kevlar, actually, I had heard projects with him, and I think you did tracks with him.
Yeah. And
that was how I'm noticing you guys were just kind of in the same news feed, you know, on Facebook and stuff at the time, and I was like, holy shit, man! A lot of these guys are next level on the mic. I really liked what was his name? Falling Down.
Falling Down, yeah.
Yeah, he was a dope producer. I liked his stuff.
I'm actually talking to him about doing another project with him. He's a student of well, I guess you could say a student of Fourth Disciple. You know, he was originally offered a spot to be a Wu element, but for whatever reason he chose not to be.
As far as Fourth Disciple, to me, he's like
the prototype.
The prototype, yeah. Him and DJ Muggs are really like the prototype for the sound that I like.
Yeah.
You know, those two, and RZA, but those two more so. Because they had a different way of doing it. You know, their beats just drove a little different. Like,
yeah. It's the thing about both of those two producers, that I'm a connoisseur of fine production of hip hop, and those two in particular, what strikes me about them a lot is you have this feeling of familiarity, but then it hits you over the head with something abstract or unfamiliar in the midst of the familiarity. So it's comfortable to listen to, but it's like it's weird at the same time.
I used to love Kill Army tracks because like in the middle of it would like flip up and be like an entirely different song.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then like it wasn't like just a beat switch up, you know, like people do like a change up and it's usually for like, you know, 1 bar or maybe even 4 bars, but like they were doing like one sample, then they'd flip it up to another sample for like the other half of the track and then flip back to the other sample. I thought that was such an obscure way to make things, but it really worked for you know, artists like Kill Army, because they had really unorthodox flows, you know,
right.
And maybe sometimes, you know, Islord might have not sounded as dope on the way that they flipped the original beat, but when they flipped it like on its head and did it almost like it sounded like almost like a totally different track.
Yeah, it's the binge and purge method.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely listeners, check out, if you haven't already, if you're not familiar with DJ Muggs from Cypress Hill, his production work is phenomenal, as well as the legendary Fourth Disciple of Wu Elements. Now I want to mention Bega Clan was also on that, I forgot to say, on Formless Kung Fu. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention them. I've done a lot of work with Born, who's Dragonfly from the Begas. He's a really dope artist, a really dope singer, as well as a rap artist. If y'all haven't heard of Dragonfly's music, you got to get out there and check it out. He's done a recent project with F+, who was also known as Silent Swordsman, who did a bunch of beats on my projects, and he was someone that was sort of reaching out to me in the past, and we bounced a lot of ideas and samples off each other, and they ended up working together, which is really dope.
It's the next generation.
I've always been a really big fan of the Begas, especially they did a project called Black Lotus.
Yeah,
I don't know
I'm familiar with that. Yeah,
that album, but that was one of my, that and AIG are two of my favorite albums that sort of came out of that like first Swarm era. You know, like
right.
They had all the artists that featured on the first Swarm album. To me, are some of the best people that they had on Wu-Tang tracks.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I really liked that album. Like, that was one of my top CDs I played in like 1998, because they had like Holocaust on it. It had the Black Knights on it. It's a King track that's on that album.
The Royal Fam. It's
that's one of my favorite tracks. So you'll say like flat out. I think it's called The Legacy.
Yeah, The Legacy.
It's
yeah,
something like that.
They had a video to that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was dope. Timbo King like commands your attention on
no
the
doubt.
mic. He's one of the best in my opinion. And I've got a few tracks with him, I think.
You know what? I just thought of something. Has Timbo King and Darkem BLA ever done a song together? Because that'd be really nice.
I don't. As far as I know, I haven't heard anything. But yeah, they would definitely blend well on a song.
You better get on it and make it happen. No, but and then Royal Reserve. How did that come about? The project itself, as far as what inspired you to create that?
I guess at that point I'd just kind of come off doing a project with a local MC from Calgary named Willie Cole, and together me and you featured on that project as well on that, which is a super dope track if y'all haven't checked it out. So I just kind of come off doing the album with Willie Cole, and our group at the time was called People on Elevated Thoughts, and we started doing an album, but nothing ever finished. You know, the only one that we finished would have been Icicles, but then I kind of ended up working a lot on my own again, like I was in the beginning. So I took a bit more of a self approach with that album. Like that was more for me than anything, you know. As to where I would say Formless Kung Fu was kind of like get all the dopest people I could on it, you know, at the time. And working with Lost Children of Babylon, it was really more like us trying to mesh our sounds together and do something, because Rascalz was really pushing to get me to be a producer for their projects, but I think maybe my sound didn't gel with what they were doing at that time, and we sort of parted ways. Right. So when I kind of parted ways from the Lost Children of Babylon management, if we'll say it like that, from Rascalz, I just decided to do that album, and it is what it is.
Right, yeah. So on that Royal Reserve, that joint was called, what was it? Blade?
A New Blade.
A New Blade.
The track that you were on.
And what? There's another track with the name Blade, right?
Militant Blade.
Militant Blade. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe I got the name wrong.
Was Udi on that? Was he on that too? Because I think.
Oh shit, man! I would have to get the tracks in front of me. Like some of that stuff. That was like 2010. I don't really remember the track.
And then we had the joint with Bronze. We had a couple joints with me, you, and Bronze. We had the Soul Reaver joint.
The Soul, see that track is a dope track. What did that end up being on? Like,
that was on Udi's mixtape. He put out Erratic Assassin, the Assassin's Touch. That's on Bandcamp.
Nice.
Yeah, it's on bedlambrethren.bandcamp.com. That's a dope project, man. That Assassin's Touch. See, what had happened was when I met him, he had a bunch of singles, like a bunch of songs, just randomly laying around, and we were already building on doing a track together, which eventually evolved into an album. But I said, man, why don't you just take all these tracks as like a prelude to this project we're doing and put them out as like a mixtape? So he had a song with Timbo King, And then he had just songs all over the place. So we just threw him on the mix, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I think Udi is probably one of the more slept on underground MCs as well as yourself, because I don't know. I think that the like we were saying earlier when we were talking, the business was overshadowing, you know, what was dope at the time, and the platforms were changing.
Yeah.
As far as like Facebook coming into play and stuff like that, and
also one hand of it is like me like going through a personal stuff. Like with me and Udi, we both had personal things. You know, I'm a father of you know, sons that I've had full custody of for like a decade, and you know, just doing the day-to-day father stuff, and you know, relationships, and you know, that's one aspect of it. But a lot of times that stuff fuels the creativity. But over the years, I've been it's been harder for me to write. You know what I'm saying? Not as I used to constantly write all the time, constantly, and now it's like I have to take time out to focus on writing. You know, and I'm trying to get myself work that muscle out a little bit more so I can squeeze out a few more projects here, because I have a lot of ideas about what I want to do, but and part of it is being just disenchanted with the business. I've never really been that much of a I guess you could say like a salesman of my own music, which most artists aren't. They're just good at making the art.
I'm with you on that. Like I don't like I have multiple albums out, but I haven't put any effort into pressing them or like actually putting them out, because it's all over the internet, man. Like, you know, if you want to download any of my albums, I'm sure if you type it into Google, you can find it. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm not looking to make a lot of money off of hip hop. It's never been that for me. I've always had to work a job and you know, take care of things that way. So that always ends up being top priority for me. Right. But you know, now that I'm a little farther along in life and have, you know, a bit more of a established home life and shit like that, I'm starting to figure out ways to put it out now. Like we don't need A&Rs and record labels anymore with things like DistroKid and Spotify and all of these platforms. You can put your own records out, and they're going to get in the same place that anybody else's stuff does, you know? Right. But as far as up until this point, you know what I mean? I see a lot of what I'm doing is like, we'll just call it underground, because the samples aren't paid for. You know what I mean? None of the music's cleared. Like, we're basically
you say under the radar.
Yeah, under the radar shit, like making hip hop in the basement kind of stuff. Right. So, you know, I think even there's a lot of artists that, you know, have their music out on platforms and they're just risking it, you know. But me personally, I don't want to risk it. But in the future here, I think I'm gonna do something with like what's that called there? Tracklib. Tracklib's like a website that licenses samples to artists.
Really?
So yeah, I think I might use that to license and make the beats that I want to make for a project, and make something that's like a legitimate product that I could sell and not feel worried about, you know, getting hit with the repercussions of sampling.
How familiar are you with the Griselda movement?
I know like West Side Gun and Benny the Butcher and
Conway.
What's that? Conway. Like I like their project that they put out there on I think it was Eminem's
Shady
label or something like that. But I like the beats on that shit.
That's what I was gonna say about the producer Derringer, right? He actually, there's a guy named Beat Butcher who was a producer himself, but he actually created the samples. Like, he made the instruments that Derringer sampled, so it's all, they didn't have to clear anything.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. You need to have something like that, and it doesn't take much nowadays, you know. Like, you can recreate samples, like, and as far as I'm concerned, hip-hop isn't hip-hop if it's not done with samples. Like, that's just the way it is to me. Like I don't really like trap beats and shit like that, where it just has an annoying little synthesizer playing and
shots fired. Shots fired.
But like I do have respect for, you know, groups like Outkast and UGK and
oh yeah,
Lil Jon and artists like that. Like they had they're pioneers of that sound, you know.
Right.
But I think everything is that sound now, and it's missing a lot of character.
Right, exactly.
Know? But I also think that, you know, a lot of the people that we sample probably would rather we didn't sample them, you know, and do what we do with their music. But yeah, everyone's fair game when it comes to sampling.
No doubt. So I spoke with Spearman about the Blue Lanternz movement. He said that you were a part of that as well. So I wanted you to touch on that and tell us a little bit more about it from your perspective. Yeah,
so there's a collective of MCs called the Koan. It's like a group of MCs making projects under that. I guess you could call it a record label, but it's ran by MC named Poison Flowers. He's a super dope abstract MC, and another couple of his rhyme partners, Maness the Pharaoh. They're really dope dudes. A lot of the stuff that they're doing is what I would consider to be like the future of hip hop. I really like the sound that they're doing, or the future of the style of hip hop that, you know, I grew up to. Like,
yeah.
I like what they're doing, and Blue Lanternz is kind of like the friends of everybody that's on the Koan label, and people that we've worked with in the past, and it's working out to be a lot of really dope projects because people are finally getting to, you know, bump heads with everyone that kind of is making the same style of music, you know, like there's a lot of dope dudes in it, like Zod the Immortal, Crippled Chemist, pardon me, and Spearman. There's a really dope MC named Seven Armed Labyrinth. He's a next level lyricist, man. If y'all haven't heard him, he goes by Seven Armed Labyrinth or Zen Students. Check that shit out. Like, if you want your mind melted, that kid's got some next level shit.
That's what's up, man. So the Blue Lanternz are going to be releasing a project?
Yeah, as far as I know, they're I can't stay as involved in the cipher as I want to be sometimes, just because it's a lot going on.
Right.
But they've been slowly working on something, and we've been working on a project called Tracksuit Draculas. That's going to be
dope.
Some fly shit. It's Life Scientists, Monkshood, and Freddie Fossil, with me and Spearman doing the beats, and it features a whole bunch of the Koan artists as well. It's a super dope project. It's mad obscure rhyming and really dope beats and shit. People will like it.
Just the way we like it, huh? Here at Coffee Talk, we like the dope beats and shit. Definitely. So is there any final word that you have for our listeners about White Lotus or White Lotus Clan Productions?
Yeah, like I was saying, I'm hoping to put most of the music out there on the platforms like Spotify and stuff like that. But a little bit apprehensive to do it. I think I'm probably going to repress a lot of the old projects and just do the physicals off Bandcamp. I think that's the way that I'm going to do it. But in the future, you know, I'm hoping to create a project where I can license the samples and stuff like that, and have something out there that you know, feels like more of an accomplishment to me than a guerrilla warfare project.
Right. So, man, it's been a great conversation. Even before the interview, it was a great conversation, and I'm sure we're going to continue a little bit afterwards. But really appreciate you coming through, and we'll have you back when you have any new releases, whether it's physicals or a new project or new production or whatever. Thanks for coming through.
No, it's peace, man.
No doubt. Give it up for White Lotus.
Peace.
Peace. Thanks for listening to Coffee Talk. Are you interested in appearing on the podcast? Reach out to me at coffee.talk@gmail.com. Business owners and entrepreneurs are welcome. Sponsorship packages are available to have your product or service featured on Coffee Talk. Once again, that email is coffee.talk@gmail.com. That's KAFI.talk@gmail.com.